It has been 7 months in the making, but I have finally returned. After time traveling to the past, I have finally came back with the answers that we were all searching for. Unfortunately, I didn't know about the One Piece, but hey, welcome everybody. It is I, Multi126789, other known as Multi-Man. We're talking about Harvestella again. This time, it's once again talking about Harvestella Complete Edition. So, it has been actually 7 months since I last did that video of talking about Harvestella. This was back in November of last year. It is May of this year. I finally had a chance to open up a slot for myself to actually finish and, talk about Harvestella now that I have played and beaten the game. 60 hours of game, by the way. So, technically, I guess it would be 65 if I count the Sorry, not the DLC, but the demo that was given to the game before you got to play it in November of last year. Unfortunately, a lot of games came out, such as Sonic Frontiers and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Both of those games were immaculate games, but I didn't have time for Harvestella because I'm not juggling 3 games like a lunatic. So, this year, after I finished both Fire Emblem Engage, Octopath Traveler 2, I decided it is finally time to play Harvestella, and then, Xenoblade Chronicles DLC came out at the end of April and stopped me. But then I came back and I finished Harvestella. So, without further ado, let's not stall. I'm probably going to put chapters for the game in here, because basically at this point I'm going to talk about the whole game, my thought about the story, the gameplay, everything. We're going to start off probably with the gameplay and then talk about the story later, because the story I really don't want to talk about right away in case somebody is still interested in playing Harvestella. You can get it on sale. I'm pretty sure you can find either on Steam or on the Switch. It will be on sale probably relatively soon. So if you're interested in playing it beforehand, hey, I got your back. Whatever it says in the little bar down on the YouTube bar where I have the chapters, there you go. But anyways, without further ado, let's talk. For real this time. A lot of people were probably wondering in my video, my long year-end video of the games of this year, where was ever Harvestella? Because I did make a video talking about the game, but I didn't make a mention or nomination for that last year. Well, it's no surprise to a lot of people, or maybe it is a surprise to you, depending. Since I didn't actually play the full game, I thought it would be a disservice to be putting it on my list when I only played like a fraction of what the entire experience was. So, yeah, now that I've started and played it after I picked off from where the demo ended, honestly, this game is really, really fun. It's in a fun way where I can enjoy it, but I don't know if other people would enjoy it. It's very complicated to talk about, because we're going to talk about mostly just the gameplay first, because a lot of the gameplay is going to then cycle into the story. So let's go ahead and start with that. So, like I think I said in my, once again talking about the first time when I played the demo of Harvestella, a lot of the gameplay stuff that was changed in the final release were small bits and pieces that I kind of appreciate, like when you're traveling on the overworld, the map doesn't literally drain like 2 hours just walking 5 paces from where your house or your beginning area every day starts, That was really helpful, because the way that the time system worked in the demo was absolutely terrifying for anybody who's like, wow, I really don't have enough time to do anything in this game, because they don't really allow you to. Needless to say, I'm glad that when they made a patch, or when they fixed it before releasing the game, they toned that down a little bit. So it's more reasonable than it was before. Again, the time still goes by 10-minute increments, which is, I think, to me, still a little bit, that's still a lot. It takes about, I think, 20 minutes in real time for it to go through the full cycle. 20 to 25 minutes. It really just depends what you're doing. You can probably, most of the time I know you can stretch out the timer if you have cutscenes, if you're doing story. Again, we're not talking about story, but I'm just talking about relative gameplay stuff. Though, you know, it's one of those things that you don't really want to, like, linger and spend any excess time doing stuff that's not progressing or trying to build your farm or whatever. Though, again, this game is very nice also in the way because of the fact that they have a time thing that is a little bit more restrictive than most other of these, like, games. Yeah, you can just kind of just keep playing the game and go through seasons, and it doesn't really affect the story that much. More than it just affects your crops. Which, okay, now we're going to shift gear to talking about the crux of the game. So, I know I mentioned before that when you play the demo, you get 2 classes. You start off with Sword Fighter and Mage. Now, I'm not going to spoil all the other classes, but there is in total 14 classes, I believe. Yes, 14. There's 2 hidden classes that I did not get to play, so I won't be really discussing them here or spoiling them. But then there's all the other classes that you get from actually recruiting and then being party members with certain characters, which is really nice. For a lot of it, how Harvestella decides to go with its combat is basically allowing you to choose whatever jobs that you would like to choose, and then equipping them to your character. You can equip up to 3 at a time. It's pretty useful because if you need to switch because of enemy weaknesses, or you just need a new skill or one of your other charts to be refilled with, you know, timers, you can just switch to another class and start wailing on enemies with that, which is very good because honestly, even though the gameplay is still very simplistic, even with the ability to change classes on the fly, again, a lot of your stuff that you're going to be doing in Harvestella is just attacking. Dodging is not a real thing, okay? There's no dodges with iframes, if people don't know what iframes means, it means invincibility frames, where basically you get, like, your sword class, you get to dash, right? But the dash doesn't give you any invincibility, so if an enemy swings on you and you try to dash away, you're probably going to take the 100 damage that it does to you, and you're just going to cry and be like, but I dodged it, and I'm like, no, enemies in this game have very peculiar hitboxes, which you get used to the more that you're used to fighting each enemy in the game, but it is something that you keep aware of because enemies that use magic in this game are the most dangerous enemies because they will never miss and they will always do probably triple digits worth of damage, and you will cry. And you will cry. But I think the classes in this game give you enough variety to allow you to be able to deal with most enemy combat situations without having to worry. One of my 2 favorite classes that are in the game, the machine class, where you basically get this big buster drill arm and then basically do a bunch of melee / earth damage. It's really good for also weakening foes so they don't do as much damage to you physically, which is very nice. In a game where you can't defend or dodge to get any sort of advantage on the enemies, being able to lower their damage really significantly helps. Pairing up with certain teammates also, by the way, when you unlock certain characters throughout playing the story, when you hang out with them, you actually get certain bonus effects. My favorite is a character who's a siren, and she gives you plus 10% defense in both magic and physical, which you don't think is important until you realize, oh wait, there's no way to tank or like defend in this game, so you just kind of hope that you don't die from getting smacked by a strong enemy because it just appears and then scares the daylights out of you, and you're screaming going, you know, like that. Okay, and then the other gameplay loop you're probably wondering about, because I think I talked about this a little bit when I did the original video, is the farming. So this is an action RPG with farming elements. This is not a farming game per se. Farming is a way to accelerate the aspect of the game, which is combat and adventuring through each of the dungeons. It is not a main mechanic where you can get money from farming, don't get me wrong, but it's not like a Rune Factory or, you know, a Stardew Valley or anything like that where you basically can get really huge multipliers if you know what you're doing and getting certain fruits and making sure your crops are all up to date. No, actually, Harvestella takes us in a different direction, where you'll get more benefit out of cooking your food rather than selling it off. Now, the thing is that Harvestella has a very interesting way of seeing things and saying, oh, sometimes when you get materials in a dungeon, that's going to give you more money than giving any of your crops away, because their value does not rise on certain occasions. Like, certain crops, you get one of these cool instruments called the juicer, which is basically equivalent to, let's say, Stardew Valley's winemakery, where basically you put an item, whether it be a vegetable or a fruit or something else, put it into the juicer, comes out the next day, and bam, you got an item that heals a whole lot, and you would think it would sell for more, but it doesn't. Yeah, it's something that's very strange about this game that I understand, because money isn't the hugest issue in the game. Like, I don't think I really struggled for money until, like, near endgame, where I was just starting to buy a whole bunch of stuff because I just didn't care, because I knew I was going to be beating the game soon anyways. But I was like, man, upgrading your character to have the full backpack, modifier, so you can have 5 different rows of items, takes about 50K? Yeah. So that's quite a bit of money, which is hard to earn, because you can buy livestock and you can buy, like, chickens that lay eggs, goats that give you milk, but also those don't give you that much money unless you have a lot of them. Like, a lot of this game boils down to, hey, do you cook really nice foods and you can make plenty of them to ship? Because that will probably give you some more money than the regular, item itself. But also at the same time, it's like, oh, you're also trying to maximize gardening while also wanting to try to make story progress and all this other stuff. I still think the farming and stuff is good. Still kind of sucks, though, that when you're farming, there's this thing that sometimes happens, or actually it happens every time you switch to one of your tools and you start using them. Except I think the watering can, because that's a little bit less noticeable because you're usually holding down the button for that anyways. Using your hoe or using your, what was the other one? Hammer. Both of those will put you into an animation after you're done using it that makes you be in a still animation, so you can't, like, move or run for, like, another couple of frames after the fact, which is really jarring sometimes, but it's not the end of the world. Because, again, like I said, most of the time you're gonna only be farming just because you want to harvest the crops. And at some point in the game, you get sprinklers. And sprinklers in this game are kind of busted to the point where you won't even need to grow crops anymore. Like, you won't have to actively go out and water and do anything. You just wait for them to grow, and then you're like, oh, cool, I got them. But like I said, there are things like juice makers and, like, spice makers and all these types of makers where you take those farm ingredients that you took all the time to cultivate, harvested, and then you can make them into stuff that will become cookable items. Now, cookable items are, like, one of the most important things in this game, right next to the juice. Juice and cookable items are the only way you can heal in this game, and also replenish your stamina. Your stamina is very important because all of your regular attacks in this game cost stamina. Running around costs stamina. Picking up items from the dungeons costs stamina. You're here, so you understand what I'm saying, right? The first dungeon is your best friend, because if you can loop that a couple of days, like if you need extra replenishing food just so you can go through a dungeon or go through an area just so you can be more well prepared, definitely go for the first area of the game, because it gives you the best recipe where all you have to do is get 2 items. And if you backtrack from the back half of the dungeon all the way to, like, the mid part of the dungeon, you'll have, like, enough for at least a couple of dishes to subside you for the next day when you want to actually go exploring. But speaking of which, what also you can do with cooked food, which is really important because this is one of the main ways you can make money until you use all of the different ingredients and also have made all of these recipes. In this game, there are it's a side quest called the Inn. Now, basically what the Inn does is, like, hey, if you come over here and bring a dish that you made that we have on our list over here, we'll give you money and a new recipe. Now, I don't know what the max rewards for any of them are, but I can tell you right now, when you give one, you get 1,000 geld, or whatever they call it for this currency in the game. You get 1,000, then you get, like, 2,000, then you get, like, 3,500, and then you get, like, 4,000, and it keeps going up from there. So making more foods and planting more plants so you can make more recipes is actually worth your time in this game, because that is probably the most efficient way you're going to get money, so you can start, like, investing into your farm getting bigger, investing for the pens to be able to buy animals, investing into your weapons so that you can become stronger and so you can keep up with the damage dealing along with the damage scaling of other enemies, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Because again, this game has a lot actually going on in it, but again, you have to really work hard to get there, because I'm like, it's not like this game is super difficult. Like, the combat in the game, very simplistic, and if you're looking for depth, I'm sorry, you're not going to find it here. The job classes are cool, but again, most of them are relegated to a normal attack and then maybe 3 special moves. 4 special moves technically if you complete each character's story, which we will talk about here in a little bit. But basically, again, you only get 3 weapon slots, and the job points are allocated in the game by using the job menu. One thing that's bad about the jobs in this game, or I guess would be controversially bad, is that every time you want to change your job, you have to either be at your home base or near a save point and press the start button. It's very important that I tell you this, because if you're not near a save point and press the start button, you won't be able to change it, and it will tell you that you can't change out your party members or your classes. But if you're next to a save point, then they're like, okay, here you go, you can do it. Which harks the question, why can't I just do this at any time? Because for me, it doesn't really change much of the outcomes of anything when going for a dungeon and doing that. Because for me, I'm like, being able to access your jobs at all times makes more sense just to be able to have. Obviously, you know, since that menu is already there and it's only an extra step that's really silly. But I understand why they probably did it to balance out the fact that it's like, oh, okay, well, whatever you have 3 you have to use those. Same with your characters. If they start dying, you can't just switch them out and get new ones unless you're near a save point. For me, I feel like that's a whatever. It doesn't really bother me. Because also a thing that is in this game, foes. Foes are very strong enemies that you can fight and you can get drops from for accessories. The most underwhelming part of this game is that. I'm just going to say it because a lot of people may not feel that way because they might grind all of those, which, again, these foes that I'm talking about, these are like high-level enemies compared to your level. Like, the first one you meet is like a level 20, and you won't be able to go back and beat that until you beat like the second dungeon that you decide to do in the game, because at least in this game, you get to choose after you do the first part of the demo to choose which place you want to go to. Again, technically they have a set order where they want you to go, but I was cool and I said I want to go to the beach one second. So I did, and that actually dramatically changed what quest I got beforehand to be able to complete, and also it gave me seeds for harvest that were actually a season after where I was in the game, which was kind of insane because I was like, whoa, I can grow these actually a couple of months early, which allows me to get recipes that I wouldn't have been able to if I went to the original town I was going to go to first. The only thing and caveat is that dungeon was longer. It had way higher level enemies than if I went to the other area, because then I went to the area that they wanted me to go second. And then when I did that, I'm like, oh, I cakewalked on everything. Even the foes in there, I was like, I'm just going to fight them because I'm like level like 30 or 40. And those foes are like only level 25 to like 30. So I was like, I'll eat you up. Nom, nom, nom. But no, like, there's a lot of cool stuff that you can still do in this game. Accessories are kind of the most disappointing thing, because you can get a thing that's called synthesis. Synthesis. I can't pronounce the word. Or synthesize items, basically, using a thing that you can get at some point of the game. But the only thing that's a downside about it is, come here. Hey, game developers. If you want to make a synthesis thing so you can make your accessories stronger, please make them drop stronger accessories, because the highest level thing I think I ever got when it comes to like physical and magic attack was a 13 physical plus ring with a +8 ring, or +8 attachment onto that ring. That was the strongest thing I think I got in the game. And again, it only came from a random drop from one of these bosses. So if you're on the level of these bosses or like under level and you get one of these, it might be worth it because you just get to equip it and then you just forget about it and go. But if you really want to grind for better gear for endgame so you can continue to be able to keep up with monster scaling, you're kind of have to try to just hope that RNG is very favorable to you. Because there's no way to sell these items, by the way. They just kind of clutter up your inventory in your accessory menu, and also they're just RNG, so you don't even know if you're going to get something that's worthwhile or worth taking your time out of. Speaking of which, enemy collectopedia in this game, it's good because it tells you what they're weak against, but it's not good because it doesn't tell you your item drops. Same with talking about prices for stuff. They don't show you that. You have to learn by actually just selling stuff. Which I'm like, okay, it's supposed to feel like this, I guess. But I really wish it didn't, because it kind of makes me, wince a little bit. Because again, a lot of it is experimenting and hoping that what you sold was worth selling, versus the fact that you might be able to save that to use it for something that's more useful. I guess before we go into story, I guess there's a few more things that we can talk about. First of all, the world design in this game is immaculate. I actually quite enjoyed walking around and enjoying the vistas in this world. Spectacle-wise, yeah, it's been pretty good. I would say that the only thing that was lacking was some major story voice acting. Because, again, I will say, because I'll say it in the story section, but I will say that the lack of actual vocalized characters, and like being able to build the characters with having like at least, an introduction scene where they say like a few lines so you can get what their personality and what their character sounds like would have been nice. I could tell that most of the budget went to other things other than that, but we'll talk about that later. The towns in this game, there's only 4 major towns from what I'm going to tell you, because that's the second thing you get to do after you beat the first area of the game. There's like 3 other towns you can go to. You can go and just talk to people, do quests, all that fun stuff. The quests in this game also are really fun. There's only, I think it's less than 30, because certain towns have more quests than others. Actually, that's a lie. I think there's like 50 in total, like in the entire game. Each town has like around 10-ish. And then, again, I'll talk about story stuff later when we talk about it, but, more stuff opens up as the game goes on, and when more stuff opens up, like, I'll tell you this, okay? Because I think we're soon going to start going into story, but I enjoyed every single town theme and enjoyed every single interaction I had with NPCs for the most part, other than a handful. Mostly because the handful that made me mad were the obvious people who was like, this is a lover's quarrel where this person feels bad about their spouse no longer being there, but the spouse was alive. They just didn't like their other significant other. So then when they both came back, they started arguing and bickering by why they wanted to leave. And I was like, okay, I'm good. I have too much of this in my real life too, so I'm good. But, going along with the quest, the dungeon and map design actually for Harvestella is actually more complex than I thought I was going to give it credit for. Because, again, the very first area that you go to is very basic in that way, where it's like, oh, well, there's things that you can repair and things you can blow up. That's about it, and that's the extent of it. Which is wrong, because when you get to more dungeons, they actually have dungeon gimmicks and, like, specific things that you're going to need to do to figure out to get through those areas. Again, this isn't like Etrian Odyssey, where these puzzles might take you a while. They're pretty straightforward, but once you understand them, you're like, oh, that's a little bit clever. I like what they did for that. Alright, so I guess we're done beating around the bush, because we're almost at the 25-minute mark, for me personally, with my vocal recording. I don't know where we are in the actual video. But, well, okay, it's time. So, I'm gonna give you a warning, because I probably put the timestamp already in the chapter, but hey, if you're looking at this part and if you want to play Harvestella being 100% free of any spoilers, I would suggest you either click off now or skip to like the last minute of the video, because at that point I will be completely done with talking about spoilers. But again, if you want to go into this experience blind, or if you've seen anything on the screen that's interesting to you, please, again, just go. It's okay. We'll be back.
I will erase you.
So why didn't anybody tell me that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Harvestella had a lot more story in common? Alright. So, let's talk about the story of this game. So, the story of this game is that this main character named Era, who is, Ari, Again, they don't really say their names very often in the story, so I don't really know how to pronounce them. Needless to say, all I'm going to say is she's a mysterious person that shows up in the town that you also mysteriously woke up in when you were talking to this character that you only see for a couple of seconds. Weird, but okay. You start living together, and as you go and visit all of the different towns that have different sea lights that have their own problems, at some point, the omens, which are these creatures or things that are told to be very scary of in the game that are like, oh, these big beings that are gonna eat you and gobble you up, which turns out, again, this is spoilers, so don't get mad at me, these are actually AIs. And you're like, oh, that's cool. These are robot people. They are clearly people in mechs. No, they're just straight up AI computers. And you're like, oh, okay. This one wants to the main guy that you fight and are talking to and who's interrupting you every time you finish one of the main temples or the main areas where you go and finish one of the big main story plots. He shows up every time and says, humans, they always make mistakes. They are always the ones that are causing the pain of this planet. They must be eradicated because this is the only way we can save them. Clearly that doesn't happen, and we stop him like cool people. This is the point where I'm also going to tell you, this is the first time in this entire game that they had a full voice-acted paragraph on a boss fight. I will not lie to you. This was one of the most hypest moments in the game because I'm like, yo, they brought back money? They brought back money for all the voice acting in this one like scenario where you're fighting this boss that seemed like the final boss? I was like, yo, that's sick. The music's hype. The boss is talking to me and not saying anything. It's up battle grunts like every other battle in this game. I was like, yo, this is sick. Oh, this is fire. Oh, man. It's so weird that I feel like we're beating this game, but it's so fun. And I'm so glad that I got to experience this last part of the game. What if I told you that that was only at the first half of the arcs of the game? So after you defeat this guy, after going to basically the previous dungeon, which was the castle that is an illusion because, hey, all of these AI beings that people tell you to be careful of, yeah, they basically made this simulated world where all of our characters live in. And then they basically say that, hey, if he blows this place up, then there's not going to be any place for these guys to live. So, of course, we stop him. But then we learn the truth of the fact that, hey, Earth is a separate universe from this one that was created after the Earth, the original place called Lost Gaia, then reformed as Re-Gaia, where we play in the entire game. Basically, to sum up that, we travel to that old Earth. We look at all the different places that they had, where basically the existential crisis of, is there a reason to have hope and have joy when we could just sink back into our memories and just not worry about trying to fight and trying to protect the world? And that's basically what it harps at you throughout the next, 15 hours of gameplay. When you go to the old Earth, there's like 2 or 3 dungeons that you go there, a new home base that's there. I'm like, bro, these people are also robots, but they're from the past. They're from the distant past. Not the future, from the past where the world got blown up and then all that was left with AIs that were trying to find a way to rebuild the world. I know I just said a lot, and believe me, I'm tired because I just realized how much I just spoke there. But then that's not it. So after you go and learn about a whole bunch of the stuff, one of the female lead that you were with the whole time, yeah, her parents were trying to stop the world from dying, but then they died themselves. So then she got really upset about that and being like, I'm the enemy because I want to save the human race because we go to this place that's basically the beanstalk / the Elysium from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the space beanstalk that's now connected to the castle that we just went to before ending the game prematurely the first time to realize that we're in the second arc, where then it leads us to a space station, and I'm like, what is going on? I'm losing my mind. Why is this game now being Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and being like, well, we need to make a haven for humans? But, we find out, like, in Xenoblade Chronicles X, they're technically in Somber, but, not Mimia Zones like that game. Sorry for the X spoilers. It's a almost decade-year-old... It is a decade-year-old game. Yeah, and never mind. I'm not sorry about the spoilers for that game. But seriously, then you find all the pods for the humans, and then the guy was like, okay, so Also, because these guys are AIs, when they do something bad, they get their memories wiped, and then they only keep the good parts of their memories because that's how AI decided that's how that's supposed to go. So the guy we just finished off and fought in the previous arc when I thought the game was finished is the good guy now, and he's talking about what we should do to save humanity. And he said the most rational thing is to choose one of the two fractions, the people from the old world or the people from the new one, and we have to choose one that gets to live. And then your girl's like, okay, I guess I gotta go on my villain arc now, because obviously it's my fault that I couldn't protect the world and protect the old world from dying off and being, you know, all dead and stuff. But I'm like, wow, that's really forced. You're forcing this because you know that we don't care about that, right? She's like, no, you gotta, the fate of these two worlds are only on my shoulders. You guys can't choose. And then we beat her up, and then she's like, okay, I guess I'll stop, because we go into her memory bank and tell her, hey, don't be depressed and don't let yourself be swallowed up by this despair because people tell you to, like, take all of these burdens on yourself. There's literal people here who are willing to help you. And she's like, okay. And then the guy who we erased the memories of, who's the big bad, is like, okay, you still gotta choose who you're gonna kill. And then this is a sequence where it's like, okay, so this little thing that they had that was supposed to be used to be able to regrow another population then gets launched into orbit into space, and we have to stop it. So you and the main female lead then go in this place that's falling now towards the Earth, like Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. I'm literally not making this shit up. This is literally what happens in the game. And then we're trying to stop it from crashing into the world. We learn chaos. We don't learn chaos control. I was just making a bit. But basically, she deactivates it and she stops it from gonna be crashing into any of the towns in the main area that we live in, you know, our world, where we just visited all these shrines to try to help the world. And we tried to stop it from colliding so heavily so it damages everything. But, you know, our main girl sacrificed herself. It gets sad for a little bit until all of us as her friends literally come in and save her as she jumps from the crystal, and everything is good. The end. It's what I say if it was the end, but it's not the end, because then, after that, where it feels like that was the climax, basically they're like, okay, we're back to square one. So now what are we going to do to stop this disease that, hey, by the way, it's called Quiddus. So this whole game was about a disease that was made from the original Earth, that came and basically wiped out the humans because basically it filled the air with this pollution, and after being alive in it too long, or exposure to it for too long, you would have a cardiac arrest basically and not be able to breathe and die. But in any case, that's the whole reason why we were fighting in the first place, to find out a way to stop that from happening by going to the old world to find out what we could find out, which was basically nothing. But then when we went back, we were like, oh wait, there's actually some stuff we could learn because of the previous incarnation of the dude that we beat in the first arc. Listen, guys, this is a lot for me to take into, so that's why I'm trying to take my time and tell you, because I'm explaining the whole story of this game, because this is what made this game good. If you don't like the boring gameplay, because it's not that engaging, the story will keep you engaged to the end. So, okay. Because we decided not to sacrifice any of the humans or the new humans on the new planet, basically an area is now opened up where we get to go into the other guy's log before his memory got all erased and figure out the ideas of what he wanted to do, which was basically find a way to nullify the whole thing in general by going to the planet's core. By going into the planet's core, okay, I gotta stop. I gotta take a breather, bro. I'm talking way too much. By going into the planet's core to wake up the slumbering person that is connected and is technically like an AI or an artificial intelligence made for this exact purpose to try to, you know, not lay siege to the world, but try to preserve it in a way. So we do one final dungeon. This is the final one, actually. Not 2 more fake outs or 3 more fake outs that'd be like, oh my gosh, I thought this game was done, and not in a bad way, but I'm just like, bro, they keep showing me that they have money in the second half of this game. What happened? Needless to say, after all of that stuff, the angel character or angel-like entity that we saw at the beginning of the game had an alternate form. It's that so the main form was in the center of our planet the whole time, and the alternate form wanted us to stop the original form from wanting to destroy, because humanity wanted to be destroyed because they don't take care of anything. And she says that we're bad, and that if we purge you, then we don't have to worry about the planets being bad, yada yada, so forth. We beat her up. She runs away, and she says, okay, well, I'm gonna actually destroy you in the final boss fight. Come and meet me. And I'm like, really? All this time, by the way, I am doing side quests, and I am doing these character quests that don't have, it's not like they have no relevance to the story, mind you. It's just that some of them have more things that lean towards already guessing what's going to happen in the story than others. Which, for me, I'm like, one of the characters in the game that gave me the mechanic class actually showed me the plot twist way earlier in advance, which what made me laugh, because I was like, wow, they really are going to go for this? But I didn't realize they were going to go so in-depth to the point where I was like, I literally remember the section that I was playing, and I said, I got to take a break because I'm getting a headache. Because they were explaining a bunch of stuff that I knew that made sense to me, but I was just like, bro, this is information overload. But to finish off this conversation of Harvestella, basically, then afterwards, we take everybody in the ship, we go fight a dragon boss that... This is the hardest boss in the game, but not for the reasons that you thought. This final boss is a huge dragon with a huge hitbox, but it can move its hitbox out of the range every so often when it's doing a magic spell, which is very annoying because if you want to do a gameplay feature in this game that only works against bosses, by the way, it's called break, and you need to do enough damage of whatever weakness it has to break it. So imagine me trying to get all this break damage on this enemy that I just broken, but then I can't hit them because they're not in range. It was really obnoxious, and you know, it's the final boss fight, so I was assuming it was going to be, but geez. And then afterwards, our main character dies, but then comes back to life, yada yada. We know how JRPGs work. The power of determination in our will to like protect both worlds. And then, you know, the final boss is like, okay, well, I'm not owned yet. I still have one more phase. But then we get regenerative healing, and then we don't lose. And then basically we stop her from doing anything. She's like, okay, well, I'll be back if you guys decide to screw anything up. But I guess you guys can live in harmony, I guess. And yeah, and then the game ends, and then I'm like, oh, it's the actual ending this time. I see credits. Which is funny, because I'm like, again, I don't dislike this game for staying longer than I thought it was going to, but I definitely thought because of how much I played without voice acting or out big... There were some big spectacle boss fights. Like, I will say every boss fight in this game did not disappoint. They all felt like bosses, and I felt like I was being threatened for my life because, again, in this game, you are literally just trying to fight for your life because, again, face tanking is the only thing you know how to do as a character in this game. Oh, that was a very, very long talk and conversation, and I know that for anybody who just listened to the story section, you probably appreciated that, but... yeah, basically, that's it for my, once again, talking about for Harvestella. Currently, it's almost 11 p.m. at night while I'm recording this, because this recording almost became 45 minutes. It's approaching 40 right now as I speak. Harvestella is a really fun game. I really enjoyed it. Again, for me, I can get past not having voice acting, because I'm not a baby. I'm not a baby no more. I can accept that not every game's going to have money or budget to do that. Considering that I feel like most of their other ideas got patched in, other than there was a boss fight where one of the characters said we need to guard, and I'm like, bro, there's no guarding in this game. I'm pretty sure they forgot to develop that before finishing this game, but I could see what took priority in the game, because after you get past the first section where you're just walking around the first world, or just playing like the first like initial areas of going through all the towns and doing stuff, that's when the game opens up and it allows you so many more options and so many more things that are cool and creative. Though, again, like I said, there are certain aspects that I still wish that they did. Like, I will say, guarding and dodging to give players a way to not have to face tank damage would be nice. Because I like having crops to eat so I can regain health and power through dangerous attacks. But I'm not going to lie, bro. You should have just gave us a guard button. Like I said, everything around the farming was still fun and fine. Again, like I said, the highs of Harvestella are very high, but all of the medium parts are kind of probably what will turn a lot of people away, because unless you're willing to just enthrall yourself into this world, into the characters and the narrative of the quest that actually tie back into the overarching theme of this game of what is more important in life. Is it worth pushing and trying to protect a future that we can potentially have, or trying to keep things stagnant in the present instead of trying to change anything because, you know, that's too much difficult, so one thing should go. And that was the whole thing. It's like all of the quests and all of the character events are all about people growing and allowing themselves to reach for the stars with their dreams and their hopes and their ambitions, and telling people that it's okay that you may stumble and fall, because eventually one day somebody, whether it's you or somebody else, will achieve those dreams, which is great. And because of that, that's why I really loved Harvestella as a game. Would I play it again from scratch? Probably not, if I'm being honest. Even though I could do more of an efficient time going for the game the second time around, probably not. I mean, the game was fine narratively and stuff, but the only reason I would go back and even play some of the stuff in the game again is really because some of the music in this game is absolutely legendary. Hey, Square Enix, it would be real nice if I could buy, like, the soundtrack, or if I could listen to it on YouTube instead of you copyrighting every single game that you ever make with a good soundtrack. But I digress, of course. I digress. Haha, it's just a little funny joke we like doing. Anyways, I think that's it, actually, for this time, because I thought I was going to be finished several times over like you guys did. And this will probably be the longest, once again, talking about videos you'll probably ever see on the channel for a while, because like I said, Harvestella is a game that I'm like, it has a lot of good highs, but you really have to work hard for them. But I guess that's what makes it more memorable as a game, because I really was surprised at how many surprises they had for me. I genuinely say that. And that's considering that even after you beat the game, there is post-game that I didn't get to do, but I'm just wanted to give you my thoughts on everything that I got to play and experience, minus the other two classes I didn't get, but I did beat the story, so yeah. Alright, my lovely child on the internet, I think I'm done for now. Thank you all for listening to me ramble about, once again, talking about Harvestella, the Complete Edition. I don't know where I'm going to be next. Probably Etrian Odyssey is probably going to be the next thing I talk about, because I got like 3 games that I apparently have to beat. And yeah, I know, I'm sad, bro. It's like, it's the difference between playing one RPG and then playing 3 and telling myself, yeah, this is normal. Just know life and just chug these, you know. But anyways, I have been Multi126789, other known as Multi-Man. Thank you, my lovely childs of the internet, for listening, and everybody else who watched. Hey, if you made it to this part of the video, you want to like and subscribe, because again, like I said, it's free, it costs nothing, and it also makes me feel really nice and happy to know that you actually cared enough to watch all the way to the end if you listened to this part. But yeah, I have been Multi126789, other known as Multi-Man, and I hope to see you lovely childs of the internet next time as we harvest some new solar systems in our galaxy. Ciao, ciao, until then.